Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm showing you how to make a one-layer card. To start out, I'm taking some Simon Says Stamp Sea Gloss cardstock, which is cut to a standard size card. Next, I'm scoring it down the middle using my cutting board and a bone folder. Next, I'm taking some post-it tape and putting that to cover the back side of the card. This will protect the back while I'm stamping later on. Next, I've drawn on a square onto the card which is 7 by 4 centimeters wide. I'm now rubbing it out so that the lines are not as visible anymore. They have to be visible so you can see them, but they should not be too visible. Once I've done that, I'm lining some post-it tape up to create a mask for that square. I'm starting out by just putting two pieces next to each other which are big enough to cover that square, and then I'm using a ruler and a cutting knife to cut that out. Once I've cut it out, I take away the excess pieces, and then I'm going to adhere that onto the card. When I do this, I make sure that I line up the pieces with the square that I have drawn. Once I've put it on properly, I'll make sure to press down all areas of that so it stays down. Next, I'm taking the Lots of Dots stamp set from Simon Says Stamp and I'm picking out some circles. I'm taking every other one starting with the largest one. Now I'm placing that onto a clear block, and then I'm using some Distress ink. This is tumbled glass, and a mini round blending tool from Ranger. I'm just picking up some color using that, and then I'm carefully putting that onto the stamp. By doing it this way, I get a lot softer look, and I think it looks a lot nicer for this card. Once I put the color on, I'll stamp it onto the cardstock, and I want to have them overlapping that square as well. And I'm repeating that, adding another dot onto this card. I've now sped up the video, but here I've added another color, Broken China, which is a slightly darker blue, used to add some more interest to this card. I'm stamping the same size dot here as well, and I'm stamping around 2 from each size, alternating the colors. So here I'm adding the second one, the second dark one, and then I'm drying that off with a tissue paper, and then I'm taking the next circle. I'm going to go ahead and start with the lightest color again and continue adding circles. If I were to do this again, I think I would be more careful with where I put the different colors, because at the moment there are a lot of light ones next to each other and not very many dark ones in that area. This is more apparent when I get to the end of this as well. So now I've moved on to the darker color in this, with this size as well, and I'm just stamping that onto the card. When you do this, you don't have to use circles. You can use whatever shape you want. I just really like these circles and how they come in many different sizes. It's also a stamp that I have at home, so I just use that. You can also use whatever colors you have at home. I just picked these two because I think they look really nice with this cardstock, and I think they look nice together as well. I just wanted a lighter and a darker color together. Now you can really see how there are a lot of light ones in the bottom right corner and the top left corner. And I will be adding a dark one soon to make that a bit more even, but I still think you should add more dark ones there. So now I'm just adding the last dot to this card, and then I'm going to use the tumbled glass and the blender again. And I'm just going to start from the center of that square and slowly bring that out to create a faded effect around it. By doing this, you make the square stand out a lot more, and it becomes a lot more clear that there is nothing in that square. So once I've added that color, I'm peeling off the mask, and now you can really see how that area where the mask has been is not like there's nothing there. Now I'm taking this large happy birthday stamp from the birthday balloon stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm adding this onto my compact stamp press from Fiskars. I really like this stamp press because it's really easy to line up your stamps, and it becomes really straight when you do this. So I'm taking up the mask from the back side, and then I'm heat drying my card just to make sure that it's completely dry, because I will be adding some embossing to this. For this, I'm using my Hero Arts white embossing powder, and now I'm just testing out to see that nothing sticks where it shouldn't. So right now nothing should stick at all. This looked good. There was a little bit of area where it did stick, but I wasn't too worried about that. I could always use a brush in case something happened. Now I'm taking my Versamark and I'm just adding that onto the stamp, and then I'm adding that into the square which I've left blank. When I stamp this, I make sure to press down the center really well so that all of it stamps nicely. So now you can't really see this, but it's stamped. It's very faint right now, but when I add the embossing powder, it will stick to that area. So I'm just tapping the card to make the rest of the powder fall off. Once I'm happy with that, I'm taking my heat gun and I'm making sure it's warm before I do this, but then I heat up the embossing powder and make it melt. When you do this with white embossing powder, you can really see how the powder turns whiter when this is done. It also becomes a bit more shiny, but it's very hard to see this on the camera. However, try not to overheat the embossing powder, because then it will go into the cardstock instead of staying raised on top of it. So next I'm folding the card, and I'm using my bone folder to crease it. This just makes the card stay flatter and make it look nicer. Now I'm just rubbing out that pencil marks I've done before, and this time I want to make sure they're completely gone, but I avoid rubbing out on top of the embossing powder because that can make the embossing powder look weird. Once I've rubbed it all out, I'm taking my scissors and I'm just cutting a small corner out of the fold. This is so I can add some string to the card. Once I've done that, I'm just marking with my pencil to make sure that I cut on the same area on the other side so that the string is straight. So I'm just cutting out a tiny bit there as well to make the string stay in place. Next, I'm putting some string through the hole I made in the fold, and then I'm going to tie that into a bow on the front of the card. When I do this, I'm not too worried about the placement because I can always change the placement afterwards, just sliding it around. So I'm just tying a bow and then I'm fiddling around with it until I like it. So right now it's looking really messed up, but then by turning it around and changing the size of the bow, you can get it to look really nice. If you play around with it long enough, you can get it to look any way you want. So once I've tied the bow, I'm just sliding it off to the side where I want it to be placed. Then I'm taking my scissors and I'm just cutting off the excess string. Once I've done that, I'm taking some Tombow Mono Multi liquid glue and I'm just adding a small dot onto the bow to make it stay in place. So now the card is done. Here is a picture of the final card. This design is really nice because it doesn't have to be created as a birthday card. It can be any kind of card you want. By changing up the stamps you use, both for the sentiment and for the background, it can become any kind of card that you wish. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you check out my other videos. Thank you, bye!